Sri Vinayakaya Namah, Sri Saraswatyaya Namah, Sri Gurubhyoh Namah. Chapter 7. Wonderful Incarnation. Behavior of Sai Baba, His Yoga practices, His all-pervasiveness, leper devotees service, Master Kaparde's plague case, going to Pandharpur. Wonderful Incarnation. Sai Baba knew all yogic practices. He was well versed in the 6 processes including dhauti, which is a stomach cleaning process by a moistened piece of linen 3 inches in breadth and 22.5 inches in length. In Khanda Yoga, that is separating his limbs and joining them again, and Samadhi, etc. If you think that he was a Hindu, he looked like a Yavan. If you think him to be a Yavan, he looked like a pious Hindu. No one definitely knew whether he was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. He celebrated the Hindu festival of RamaNamaUK with all due formalities and at the same time permitted the sandal procession of the Mohammedans. He encouraged wrestling bouts in this festival and gave good prizes to winners. When the Gokulashtami came, he got the Gopal Kala ceremony duly performed, and on Eid festivals he allowed Mohammedans to say their prayers or namaz in his masjid. Once in the Muharram festival, some Mohammedans proposed to construct a tajia or tabut in the masjid, keep it there for some days, and afterwards take it in procession through the village. Sai Baba allowed the keeping of the tabut for 4 days, and on the 5th day removed it out of the masjid without the least compunction. If we say that he was a Mohammedan, his ears were pierced. If you think that he was a Hindu, he advocated the practice of circumcision. Although, according to Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who observed him closely, he was not himself circumcised. If you call him Hindu, he always lived in the masjid. If Mohammedan, he had always the dhuni or the sacred fire there, and the following things which are contrary to Mohammedan religion, such as grinding on the handmill, blowing of the conch and bells, oblation in the fire, bhajan, giving of food, and worship of Baba's feet by means of arghya or water, were always allowed there. If you think that he was a Mohammedan, the best of Brahmins and Agnihotris, leaving aside their orthodox ways, fell prostrate at his feet. Those who went to make inquiries about his nationality were dumbfounded and were captured by his darshan. So none could definitely decide whether Sai Baba was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. This is no wonder, for he who completely surrenders himself to the Lord by getting rid of his egoism and body consciousness thus becomes one with him and has nothing to do with any questions of caste or nationality. Such a one as Sai Baba saw no difference between caste and even beings and beings. He took meat and fish with fakirs, but did not grumble when dogs touched the dishes with their mouths. Such a unique and wonderful incarnation was Sai Baba. On account of the merits in my past birth, I had the good fortune to sit at his feet and enjoy his blessed company. The joy and delight I derived therefrom was incomparable. In fact, Sai Baba was pure Anand and consciousness. I cannot sufficiently describe him, his greatness and uniqueness. He who took delight at his feet was established in his own self. Many sannyasis, sadhakas, and all sorts of men aspiring for salvation came to Sai Baba. He always walked, talked and laughed with them and always uttered with his tongue, Allah Malik, meaning God is the sole owner. He never liked discussion or arguments. He was always calm and controlled, though irritable at times, always preached full Vedanta, and nobody knew till the last who was Baba. Princes and poor people were treated alike by him. He knew the inmost secrets of all, and when he gave expression to them, all were surprised. He was the repository of all knowledge, still he feigned ignorance. He also disliked honor. Such were the characteristics of Sai Baba. Though he had a human body, his deeds testified to his godhood. All people considered him as the Lord God in Shirdi. Behavior of Sai Baba. Fool that I am, I cannot describe Baba's miracles. He got almost all the temples in Shirdi repaired. Through Tatya Patil, the temples of Shani, Ganapati, Shankar Parvati, village deity, and Maruti were put in order. His charity was also remarkable. The money he used to collect as dakshina was freely distributed, rupees 20 to some, rupees 15 or 50 to others every day. The recipients thought that this was pure charity money, and Baba wished that it should be usefully employed. People were immensely benefited by having a darshan of Baba. Some became hale and hearty, wicked people were turned into good ones, kushtha or leprosy was cured in some cases, many got their desires fulfilled. Without any drops or medicine being put in the eyes, some blind men got back their eyesight, and some lame ones got their legs. Nobody could see the end of his extraordinary greatness. His fame spread far and wide, and pilgrims from all sides flocked to Shirdi. Baba sat always near the dhuni and eased himself there, and always sat in meditation, sometimes with and on other times without a bath. He used to tie a white turban on his head and wear a clean dhotar around his waist and a shirt on his body. This was his dress in the beginning. He started practicing medicine in the village, examined patients and gave medicines. He was always successful, and he became famous as a hakim or doctor. A curious case may be narrated here. One devotee got his eyeballs quite red and swollen. No doctor was available in Shirdi. The other devotees took him to Baba. Other doctors would use ointments, anjans, cow's milk and camphorated drugs, etc. in such cases. He pounded some biba or marking nuts and made 2 balls of them, thrust them on in each eye of the patient and wrapped a cloth bandage around them. Next day, the bandage was removed and water was poured over them in a stream. The inflammation subsided and the pupils became white and clear. Though the eyes are very delicate, the biba caused no smarting, but removed the disease of the eyes. Many such cases were cured, and this is only an instance in point. Baba's yogic practices. Baba knew all the processes and practices of yoga. 2 of them will be described here. Dhauti or cleaning process. Baba went to the well near a banyan tree at a considerable distance from the masjid every 3rd day and washed his mouth and had a bath. On one occasion, he was seen to vomit his intestines, clean them inside out and outside, and place them on a geometry for drying. There are persons in Shirdi who have actually seen this and who have testified to this fact. Ordinary dhauti is done by a moistened piece of linen, 3 inches broad, 22.5 feet long. This piece is gulped down the throat and allowed to remain in the stomach for about half an hour for being reacted there and then taken out. But Baba's dhauti was quite unique and extraordinary. Khanda Yoga. In this practice, Baba extracted the various limbs from his body and left them separately at different places in the masjid. Once a gentleman went to the masjid and saw the limbs of Baba lying separately at separate places. He was much terrified, and he first thought of running to the village officers and informing them of Baba being hacked to pieces and murdered. He thought that he would be held responsible as he was the first informant and knew something of the affair. So he kept silent, but next day when he went to the masjid, he was very much surprised to see Baba, hale and hearty and sound as before. He thought that what he had seen the previous day was only a dream. Baba practiced yoga since his infancy, and nobody knew or guessed the proficiency attained. He charged no fees for his cures, became renowned and famous by virtue of his merits, gave health to many a poor and suffering person. This famous doctor of doctors cared not for his interests, but always worked for the good and welfare of others, himself suffering unbearable and terrible pain many a time in the process. One such instance I give below, which will show the all-pervasive and most merciful character of Sai Baba. Baba's all-pervasiveness and mercy. In the year 1910 AD, Baba was sitting near the dhuni on Diwali holiday and warming himself. He was pushing firewood into the dhuni, which was brightly burning. A little later, instead of pushing logs of wood, Baba pushed his arm into the dhuni. The arm was scorched and burnt immediately. This was noticed by the servant Madhava and also by Madhavrao Deshpande, also known as Shama. They at once ran to Baba, and Madhavrao clasped Baba by his waist from behind and dragged him forcibly backwards and asked, "Deva, for what have you done this?" Then Baba came to his senses and replied, The wife of a blacksmith at some distant place was working the bellows of a furnace. Her husband called her. Forgetting that her child was on her waist, she ran hastily and the child slipped into the furnace. I immediately thrust my hand into the furnace and saved the child. I do not mind my arm being burnt, but I am glad that the life of the child is saved. Leper Devotees Service. On hearing the news of Baba's hand being burnt from Shama, Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, accompanied by the famous Dr. Paramanand of Bombay with his medical outfit consisting of ointments, lint, bandage, etc., rushed to Shirdi and requested Baba to allow Dr. Paramanand to examine the arm and dress the wound caused by the burn. This was refused. Ever since the burn, the arm was dressed by the leper devotee Bhagoji Shinde. His treatment consisted in massaging the burnt part with ghee and then placing a leaf over it and bandaging it tightly with pattis or bandages. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar solicited Baba many a time to unfasten the pattis and get the wound examined and dressed and treated by Dr. Paramanand with the object that it may be speedily healed. Dr. Paramanand himself made similar requests, but Baba postponed, saying that Allah was his doctor and did not allow his arm to be examined. Dr. Paramanand's medicines were not exposed to the air of Shirdi as they remained intact, but he had the good fortune of getting a darshan of Baba. Bhagoji was allowed to treat the hand daily. After some days, the arm healed and all were happy. Still, we do not know whether any trace of pain was left or not. Every morning, Bhagoji went through his program of loosening the pattis, massaging the arm with ghee, and tightly bandaging it again. This went on till Sai Baba's Samadhi. Sai Baba, a perfect Siddha as he was, did not really want this treatment. But out of love to his devotee, he allowed the upasana, that is the service of Bhagoji, to go on uninterrupted all along. When Baba started for Lendi, Bhagoji held an umbrella over him and accompanied him. Every morning, when Baba sat near the post close to the dhuni, Bhagoji was present and started his service. Bhagoji was a sinner in his past birth. He was suffering from leprosy. His fingers had shrunk, his body was full of pus and smelling badly. Though outwardly he seemed so unfortunate, he was really very lucky and happy, for he was a premier servant of Baba and got the benefit of his company. Master Khaparde's plague case. I shall now relate another instance of Baba's wonderful Leela. Mrs. Khaparde, the wife of Mr. Dada Sahib Khaparde of Amravati, was staying at Shirdi with her young son for some days. One day, the son got high fever, which further developed into bubonic plague. The mother was frightened and felt most uneasy. She thought of leaving the place for Amravati and went near Baba in the evening when he was coming near the Vada, which is now the Samadhi Mandir, in his evening rounds for asking his permission. She informed him in a trembling tone that her dear young son was down with plague. Baba spoke kindly and softly to her, saying that the sky is beset with clouds, but they will melt and pass off and everything will be smooth and clear. So saying, he lifted up his kafni up to the waist and showed to all present 4 fully developed buboes as big as eggs and added, "See how I have to suffer for my devotees. Their difficulties are mine." Seeing this unique and extraordinary deed, or Leela, the people were convinced as to how the saints suffer pains for their devotees. The mind of the saints is softer than wax. It is soft in and out as butter. They love their devotees without any idea of gain and regard them as their true relatives. Going to Pandharpur and staying there. I shall now close this chapter after relating a story illustrating how Sai Baba loved his devotees and anticipated their wishes and movements. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who was a great devotee of Baba, was Mamlatdar at Nandurbar in Khandesh. He got an order of transfer to Pandharpur. His devotion to Sai Baba bore fruit as he got an order to go and stay at Pandharpur, which is regarded as the Bhu Vaikuntha or heaven on earth. Nana Sahib had to take immediate charge, so he left immediately for the place without even writing or informing anybody at Shirdi. He wanted to give a surprise visit to Shirdi, his Pandharpur, see and salute his Vithoba, that is Baba, and then proceed. Nobody dreamt of Nana Sahib's departure for Shirdi, but Sai Baba knew all about this, as his eyes were everywhere. He is omniscient. As soon as Nana Sahib approached Neemgaon, which is a few miles from Shirdi, there was a stir in the masjid at Shirdi. Baba was sitting and talking with Mahalsapati, Appa Shinde and Kashiram when he at once said, "Let us all four do some bhajan. The doors of Pandhari are open, let us merrily sing." Then they began to sing in chorus, the burden of the song being, "I have to go to Pandharpur and I have to stay on there, for it is the house of my Lord." Baba sang and the devotees followed him. In a short time, Nana Sahib came there with his family, prostrated before Baba, and requested him to accompany them to Pandharpur and stay with them there. This solicitation was not necessary, as the devotees told Nana Sahib that Baba was already in the mood of going to Pandharpur and staying there. Hearing this, Nana Sahib was moved and fell at Baba's feet. Then, getting Baba's permission, Udi and blessings, Nana Sahib left for Pandharpur. There is no end to Baba's stories, but let me now make a halt here, reserving for the next chapter other topics such as the importance of human life, Baba's living on alms, Bhaijabai's service, and other stories. Bow to Sri Sai, peace be to all.